Constructive Drawing by Vladimir London. Before we begin, I have to say that the different proportions you see in this video are not absolute rules. Every person is different, and therefore proportions will vary from model to model. Also, the sequence of steps you see in this lesson is not the only way to draw a portrait. The way the artwork is done here is to explain the main anatomical features, the geometrical planes, and the proportions of a human head. Let's begin with the human skull in the three-quarter view. We mark the top and bottom edges of the skull, followed by the left and right marks of the head. I'm making a drawing from imagination and memory, and making the height of the head 1.5 times greater than the width. An important landmark is the top of the forehead, which marks the top edge of the face. The height of the face is divided into 3 equal parts. One mark coincides with the base of the nose, which is at the same level as the base of the skull, and another with the eyebrow level. So, the distance from the chin to the nose, the height of the nose, and the height of the forehead are equal in size. The outline of the cranium, which is the part of a skull that encases the brain, has a characteristic rounded shape. The central line of the face is an important virtual landmark. It helps keep the drawing of a skull symmetrical. With this line in place, we can decide on the width of the forehead and draw a curved line that separates the top and side planes of the cranium. Another important proportion of the head is its middle. The horizontal line goes through the middle of the head at the level of the eyes. The combined dental volume of the upper and lower jaws can be simplified as a virtual barrel. The bottom edges of the cheekbones are on the same level as the base of the nose, or 1/3 of the face. The cheekbone arch goes above the ear canal. I'll mark the borders of the cranium bones, although their shape and names are not important for the purpose of this lesson. The only movable bone of a skull is the lower jaw. It connects at the joint beneath the cheekbone, right in front of the ear canal. At the top, its vertical part splits into 2 portions. One is for the joint, and the other is for connection with the chewing muscle. It's good to check that the jaw is parallel to the face. The angle of the jaw is on the same level as the teeth. The nasal bone is at eye level, or in the middle of the head. The nasal cavity has the characteristic shape of a pear. Eye sockets are not round. Their shape resembles a trapezoid. The inner geometry of an eye socket forms a pyramid that points into the skull. It consists of several bones. Inside, there are gaps between the bones for the optic nerves and blood vessels. It is important to mark the 2 bulging points at the top of the forehead. They are good landmarks for the planes of the cranium. The frontal bone has a semi-spherical shape. The brow ridges are more prominent in male models and protrude less in females. The skull has a characteristic smile. I won't mark all the teeth, just a few to indicate their scale. The spine connects to the skull in the middle of the base, right between the 2 ear canals. It is important to visualize this place in order to connect the head and neck correctly in drawing. From this point of view, I decided to place the level of the seventh vertebra just below the bottom edge of the chin. The seventh vertebra is an important bone of the spine. This is where the neck ends. The base of the neck is depicted as an oval. This oval is tilted. At the back, it is just below the seventh vertebra, and at the front, it is about 2 vertebrae lower. The dimension of this oval is approximately half of the head height. The top part of the breastbone is an important landmark. Its top edge is at the pit of the neck level. The first pair of ribs, which is marked as an oval in drawing, connects to this bone. A tilted straight line represents the direction of the shoulders. It is seen in perspective. The oval of the first pair of ribs is the narrowest part of the rib cage. From these ribs, the rib cage slopes downward and becomes wider. In many models, the distance between the chin and the pit of the neck is the same as the distance from the chin to the nose. The 2 collarbones also connect to the top part of the breastbone, just above the first ribs. Each collarbone is twisted like a bicycle handlebar. First, it bends around the neck and then points to the shoulder's end. We see collarbones in perspective, and the one on the left-hand side appears foreshortened. At the end, the collarbone connects to the shoulder blade. I won't be going into anatomy of a shoulder girdle in depth because this video is dedicated to the proportions of the human head. If you want to learn more about anatomy, you may enroll in the Anatomy Master Class. The head of the upper arm bone has a spherical shape, which gives great freedom of movement in the shoulder joint. In our drawing, the 2 arms are hanging down and the shoulders are relaxed. The second pair of ribs connects to the breastbone at the place between the top part of the breastbone and its body. The second ribs form a slightly bigger oval than the first pair. You may notice that the first pair of ribs points slightly upward from the breastbone. The second pair goes outward horizontally, and the third pair of ribs points slightly downward from the breastbone. All other pairs will point downward at an increasing angle. Good understanding of the anatomy and construction of the shoulder girdle will help to connect the neck to the shoulders correctly and the head to the neck. The upper outline of the shoulders is formed by the trapezius muscle. We can mark this outline as one continuous line from the end of one collarbone to the other. At the top, this line curves around the 8th vertebra. The back outline of the neck is defined by the upper portion of the trapezius, which goes to the base of the skull. The deltoid is another form-shaping muscle. Its back portion originates from the spine of the shoulder blade and the middle portion from the lateral edge of this bone. One of the main muscles of the neck connects the top of the breastbone and the medial part of the collarbone with the process at the base of the skull. This muscle spirals around the neck from the pit of the neck to a spot behind the ear. The pair of these muscles form a characteristic V shape at the pit of the neck. In another of the Life Drawing Academy video lessons, you will discover all the facial muscles that influence the shape of the human head and play important roles in displaying emotions. Now, let's make another drawing of the head stylized with planes. I'll make this portrait on the same scale as the previous artwork. The purpose of this exercise is to see what planes shape the human head. The drawing begins with marking the top, bottom, left, and right edges of the head. The outline of the cranium repeats the shape of the skull. The outline of the face is approximate for now. The line of the eyes divides the height of the head exactly in half. The top of the forehead indicates the upper border of the face. The full height of the face is divided into 3 equal parts, from the chin to the base of the nose and to the brow ridge line. A virtual central line of the face will help to draw facial features symmetrically. 1/3 of the face can be measured down from the chin. This is the location of the pit of the neck. As illustrated in the previous drawing, the neck muscles form a V shape from this landmark. The muscle's outline goes from the breastbone to the process of the skull behind the ear. This process is located on the same level as drawing a simplified human head with virtual planes is a very useful exercise to do if you haven't done it so far. It is easier to control the proportions and symmetry of flat-sided geometrical objects than to manage very complex organic shapes like a human face. Apart from geometry, virtual planes greatly help when it comes to rendering tonal values. It is very easy to tell if one plane or another is turned towards or away from a light source. Should it face the light, its values will be lighter. Planes oblique to the light will be darker. Also, the direction of hatching strokes can be applied along surfaces of planes, revealing the 3-dimensional nature of a human face and head. As you can see, I draw all organic smooth surfaces of a face as a series of straight lines that form triangles and trapezoids. There is no limit to how many planes you can draw. The smaller the planes, the more defined. This muscle has several functions, and in drawing, it serves as the border between the front and side planes of the neck. The throat has a different angle to the neck, and this forms the different planes of the neck. One of the ways to depict those planes is to draw a cross contour of the neck. An eraser takes some tint off the paper. This can be used to suggest highlights and light areas in drawing. The lower half of the throat is turned obliquely to the direction of light and can be shaded slightly. When the planes are in place, it is much easier to render tonal values. Pencil strokes can be applied along the surfaces of planes. Of course, in portrait drawing, I won't be making strong borders between the planes. The purpose of this lesson is to demonstrate the relationship between the skeletal anatomy its planes, and the smooth surface of the head. So, let's continue drawing a portrait. Once again, I will make the portrait on the same scale as the previous two sketches. The same proportions and dimensions will apply here. The height of the face can be divided into 3 equal parts. Not every model's face will be divided perfectly into thirds. The base of the nose is also the level of the bottom edges of the cheekbones and the lower end of the ear. The virtual line of the brow ridge is parallel to the base of the nose. One of the main proportions is parallel to the other horizontal lines of the face. There is always shadow beneath the lower lip when light comes from above. The lower lip catches the light, and highlights can be marked with an eraser. I also use an eraser to indicate planes with light tonal values. A hairstyle naturally repeats the outlines of the skull at a distance that represents the thickness of the hair mass. I won't spend too much time talking about how to draw a hairstyle because the topic of this lesson is the human head's construction, planes, and proportions. However, you need to keep in mind that a hairstyle must also be treated as a physical mass with its planes and volumes. I hope you understand the importance of human head anatomy, geometry, and proportions when it comes to drawing a portrait from life, memory, or imagination. Not every proportion is an absolute rule. You will find models with different proportions, but knowing what proportions to check and how to make sure a head has sound construction in drawing is very helpful. I will render the tonal values a bit more before finishing this artwork. Of course, this video does not cover every aspect of drawing a portrait in the 3/4 view. In this course, there are other videos dedicated to drawing portraits from life. Even though this drawing is done not from life but from imagination, you can see that a model is not always needed to make a recognizable portrait. The universal rules of constructive drawing are very helpful skills every artist must have to make proficient artworks.